Is the recording in progress? It might.
Hey, quiet, there's a recording in progress.
Realize it's smart ass.
I know what this place is called.
All right. Brian, you want me to go first? Can the internet people hear me?
Hey, everybody.
Woo. I'm going to turn down the audio a little bit. Anyway, let me share my screen here. And look at that. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about three different things, breaking all of the sector rules simultaneously. The first one, though, is going to be Zion Church. Zion was like 6 blocks that away over on Linden Avenue, just a block north of Atwood Avenue. We went up and we were basically able to salvage whatever materials we could gather out of the building. And so these are all tin, they're galvanum steel shingles, so like yay big. There's actually some still sitting out on the north side of the parking lot. They're imported from New Zealand. This is one interesting thing with churches is they were going to be there forever. So it made sense to buy a really fancy roof in like 2009 when they re-roofed. But it turns out that the church was not bound to last forever, and as a result, the shingles still have tons of life on them. This is the north side of the building, so we took a whole bunch of the north side shingles down. While we were doing so, we found the danger and skull and crossbones penciled in on the side of the roofing material. Who the hell knows why? We also got a few other things. This is totally legal. See the red flag at the back? If you have the red flag, it makes everything okay. So we got the gutters off the building. We ended up getting some 60-foot gutters, but we had to hand carry those over. So we had 4 of us throw the gutter on our shoulders and walked it all the way back, which was a fun and interesting
trip. As long as you got a red ratchet strap, man.
Totally legal, yeah. As far as you want. Yeah. I was thinking about getting you on the one wheel in the back to ride behind me.
Yeah, that'd just be for show.
Outrigger. So this was up on the roof. Fortunately, on the north side, the other thing is there was a long kind of run out on the first floor, and so it gave us plenty of safe space to work off a ladder. And then what we were actually after, however, was not the shingles, but was the timber decking that was making the whole core structure of the building. So this building's built, you can kind of see it here as a big arch. It's got these 3-inch shiplap timbers. They're double tongue groove. I think pass this around. So these big old 3-inch timbers. Fun of the people on the interwebs looks like this thing. So it's this huge chunk of wood. You'll notice that they're nailed together. There's some pieces here that are what happens when you plow into the nail, which are unavoidable, unfortunately, with the way that we're using them. So why are we bothering to get all this wood decking? This is the second floor in this building. This is the caretaker's quarters. And up on the second floor, we have an old aluminum roof, and then there's foam, and then there's rubber on the outside. And the idea was to be able to drop in inserts of wood, essentially to give us a insert ceiling where you can see where the smoke alarms are. So when we first cut this hole in, I brought some of the material back, and I made a test cut on like a drop piece, just to see if conceptually, can I tip them in and jam them up there? And will they come back down? And is it a way that's probably not going to drop the whole roof on my head? Seemed to be good. And so what I did then is I went to the track saw and tried to cut the board. The problem is that the track saw is too short. So I could get like almost all the way through, but then I had to flip it and cut it again. And then once it had a straight line, I could put on the table saw and cut it in one go on the table saw and get a cube of, or a square, I should say, of lumber. This, though, is flexible, so that piece of 4 timber, you can actually bend it. It's nailed together, but the nails are actually pretty ductile, so it kind of floats around. So then I brought that upstairs, held it up, tipped it in, and jammed it in place. It's worth noting here that you'll see this is the second floor of this church, right? So we cut all this stuff out of the ceiling. I should say by we, I mean Sean. Cut it out of the ceiling. We stacked it all up there. And we brought it downstairs, stacked it on the truck. Then I brought it into the wood shop, unstacking it, cut it up. Then I carried it up 2 flights of stairs, held it above my head, stuck it in the ceiling, and set it in place where it'll hopefully live. This wood has been moved a lot. It's not very light. So then once we had a strategy of what we were doing, this is what we ultimately ended up doing to get it off the roof or get it down. Because keep in mind, Sean's up on a ladder sawzalling, and he's trying to get it to not fall into the building. Because if it falls in and down, it's going to shatter. And so we had to get down each section. So we didn't initially arrive at this strategy of segmenting it, but this is ultimately what became the feasible way of kind of handling these things and getting them into a reasonable size section. So that's what we ended up doing to get the pieces down. You can see it took also 4 people to get the pieces apart. And obviously the cinematographer here is really just lining up the shot. That guy, most critical. Ultimately then that let us do, what did you say, Sean? Like 2 hours of work to get all this cut? 2.5? That was a full day of work to cut all the sections. 2 days. Well, it was a full day once we figured out the hell we were doing. And then Sean has experience doing these things, and so his suggestion was we should leave something so you can't fall into the building while we're still working along the building. And then ultimately we cut that out and cleared the roof off of humans and got left the space in a less safe state as we wrapped up. This then is what we ended up on this end. And so I've been processing pallets of lumber. I've got 2 pallets done. I got 2 pallets to go. It looks like we're gonna have enough, but I won't know until I'm like done putting them up. So I'm hopeful that I actually have enough wood to do the whole ceiling, but we won't know until we know. This is a video of them taking down the bell tower. So Google Photos is taking a while to load this earlier. We're just gonna let it go. It should load. So this obelisk kind of tower thingy, the neighbors are all very excited at seeing it get knocked over. And so I happen to be knowing that it seemed likely they're going to knock it over. So I sat in the van for like 25 minutes waiting to see if they're actually going to take it down or not. Managed to get a video of them trying to obliterate with the excavator. The problem was the excavator couldn't reach high enough. So he had to reach up like as high as he could and then try to knock it over without knocking the tower on top of himself, which he ultimately did well. We'll see if this thing actually wants to go or not. Stupid Google. I'm going to jump forward and jump back.
Send you that link.
Oh, you did? Okay.
YouTube, right?
I posted one of them, yeah. There's a, actually, is this video on YouTube? Oh my God. Super amateur hour. This is not good. Oh, look at that. It's not monetized. So yeah, they ended up reaching over, and this bell tower midsection was all steel, and it ended up being that the steel, there's just a brick facade around the edge of the steel, and it ended up being 4 giant steel beams that were holding it up. So you'll see this whole thing twist because it's really not a brick structure; it's a steel structure. So he's kind of lightly tapping it to get a sense of what's going to happen. And then now you can see he kind of takes a swat at it. It doesn't knock over, and then he's got a lot more confidence to try to shove it over till it wants to go.
When do the demons fly out?
Exactly. So you can see the whole thing's twisting, right? It's like spiraling out before it finally gets knocked over. So this is the point where the professionals took over the job site, and the salvage people gave up on.
Oh, when you take him to get Jim on the crane.
Yeah, I went up and tried to take the cross down, but that cross was built into the roof. So then as they demoed the site, Sean went back over to get some of these big glulam timbers. These timbers are supposed to get reused in a new construction building. Of course, we needed a suitable moving vehicle. The minivan can carry a lot of weight. No trouble.
Bottom it out?
Way bottomed out, but it still drove. That was the critical part. The fun part is Sean grabs the passenger door handle, and I said, "No, get your own car." he was the one who was gonna put it over. And then this is a pretty cool shot of the building. You can see the excavator just destroys these panels. We had originally talked about like, well, maybe there's a way the excavator can kind of swat chunks off, and like, there's no way short of having your own excavator and your own motivation to not destroy it to see that happen. That said, the power of the thing is just immense. It doesn't mind nails or whatever fasteners you think are holding it just get knocked off. So then I gave up on the track saw. I was realizing it takes forever. I bought this thing, not a 7 1/4 inch saw. This is a 10 1/4 inch saw. This thing's a monster. It's a worm drive, so it's got a gear reduction up here and a gearbox, which actually makes it really well behaved. It cuts really well. It's one of those instances where having more power than you need is way safer than having just enough power to try to have the thing kick back and kill you. So what I ended up doing then is setting the pallets outside, throwing up the boards on top of the sawhorses, cutting one edge with a big T-square that I made out of plywood. And then had to wear a full face mask because this thing has no provision at all for dust collection. So if it's like totally dead calm, no wind, the saw dust all falls. But in any breeze at all, it blows directly up into your face. And so I was finding myself closing my eyes and squinting while hanging on to a 10 1/4 inch saw. It's just not a good combination. And so this is a good instance of where a respirator is a great plan. The next sucky thing is trying to put lights in. So of course, lights are designed for a 5/8 ceiling, or maybe a 1/2 inch drywall ceiling, not a 3 inch solid timber ceiling. So I ended up using a 6 inch hole saw to cut through for like a wafer light or an insert light. And then I had to cut ramps for the conduit to really get the conduit to jam in there, using flex metal conduit going up. Ended up with a whole host of tools, needing bars and fine saws and sawzalls and all sorts of things to be able to split these panels up. When we were taking them down, in like those 7-foot chunks. What I was finding is I could carry them upstairs, but I was just wearing myself out. And so I'd end up splitting them down into like 3-foot pieces. That seemed like a way better situation than trying to carry these huge decks up. It's just too much work. So I got a ton of offcuts. If anybody's got any creative ideas for things you want to do with end grain pine, you have to be really careful because this shit is full of nails. They're
pretty easy to spot.
Sort of easy to spot. So yeah, so I've been progressively working my way through all the things. So we had just dropped in temporary lights. I think the electrical inspector's comment was the building is functionally, or the caretaker's quarters is functionally complete. However, it is not done. On the inspection note, she's like, "This is not finished, but it's legally finished, but it's not done." So this is a mess. Hold on. My joint layout. Oh, it's good. Oh yeah, no. I mean, you never really see any of that. What's actually fun is because it's sitting up there, you can shift it. The whole ceiling just moves around. Yeah, it doesn't matter. In fact, it's because this row wasn't tapped in yet, so you settle the rows, you can shift it all around. So yeah, essentially working through rooms, getting the space sorted out. Fan box, which is another fun one. It's got side brackets on it. So these are designed to get cut in with a hole saw, and then you had to chisel a bunch of shit out. Ended up putting that in, and then I put a steel strap across the back, which is the top, and a whole bunch of bolts through here, and then I screwed it in. So it's the old belt and suspenders approach to make sure it can't fall through the ceiling. They're picky about fans. This was the other funny one, is while they were constructing the ceiling, whenever the construction guys were banging these things together, if the nail would stop, they would just smash it over and beat it into the ceiling. You couldn't see it anymore. So occasionally, if I'm cutting with the saw this way, and I can't see this because this is buried in the middle of all the panels, the saw will cut off the end of the nail, which is not good. So the table saw, to be specific too, I have to put it in bypass mode so that it won't set off the saw stop. It actually only would have done it once thus far, but it still would have been inconvenient and $100. So yeah, any questions on wood chaos?
Now, does this make it safer or more dangerous in like a tornado situation? That's a lot of weight to be like right directly over the head.
So I'm locking these in with plywood rips, so it's like locked in. So if the whole ceiling rips apart and then the wood falls, the whole ceiling was going to rip apart anyways. So it's kind of one of those. definitely got a little armor up there. It actually, with the rain last night, it was a notable difference between the exposed aluminum ceiling as opposed to the mass timber ceiling above. And actually, what's interesting too is when the table saw is running, if I tip up a panel, it drops the decibel level substantially with this big chunk of timber in your way. So it's doing what's expected, which is it's insulating both from sound as well as heat. So
Apparently,
the crows actually go up on the roof, and I've heard them years ago when we first bought the building. There was like footsteps up on the roof, and I was like, "What the fuck is up on the roof?" So I go out to the street and I'm looking, trying to see like who's up walking around. So it sounded like a human was up walking around the roof, and this was when the roof was short. So I thought somebody went up back here and like got up on the roof or something. No humans to be seen, and then I finally see a crow flying off, and so the crows go up and they bounce stuff on the roof. So they're like bringing something up there and they're bouncing it because the roof is bouncy. So they're up playing around. So you hear them hop and then they caw and then they bounce things on the roof and they hop and caw. Yeah, I don't know.
They're bouncing themselves or bouncing like?
No, they're bouncing something. I don't know if it's food or rocks or mice or who knows what.
Sometimes you do it to play it. Sometimes they do it to like that's like crack nuts open.
Yeah.
Just throw shit around.
You spent too much time watching the crows and
Watch a lot of shit.
Any questions about this stuff? Yes.
So taking down the panels, I see that there were like longer boards attached.
Yeah. Yeah, so those were the furring strips that were used to hold the shingles in place. So we didn't actually like bring anything. We were reusing whatever the hell was on site. But yeah, we were putting these furring strips up so that the things could tip in.
We eventually got an even better system. By the end of the second day, again. Second day?
Oh, this was like a 3 day. Oh, yeah. You're good.
What does it take to get like approval to do this sort of thing? Sell the building. Is it easy to notarize people or?
So there's two ways to do it to get approval. So the question was, how do you get approval to do this for the building? And in this case, the person who owns this building used to own the building that we're in now. And so we've known the Krupp family for a number of years since we bought this, and they've been intrigued at our business model and our financial model and our community kind of stuff. And so Joe has given us permission to go and salvage stuff out of their buildings. Other times, though, it's been the city of Madison. Other times, it's been other developers. The city actually has a law that says that you have to recycle material from a building prior to demolition. So legally, usually builders are calling Deconstruction Inc. Deconstruction Inc. then is saying, we don't care about your building, do your thing. And then they can check a box. The developer can check a box that says, yes, we reached out to a deconstruction company and they said they didn't want anything. So it's the same old thing. I like, well, you tried, so.
But honestly, they're more concerned about like metal bricks. Then the main excavator of this guy also specified something cost. But to get to this level of sound, and this is just a piece of glass.
A lot of this building is the glass over there. Yeah, I sold all the doors from the building on Craigslist and on Facebook for about the last 2 years. So I've been selling stuff from this building to random people on the internet for quite a while. A lot of it isn't worth it, like time wise. It doesn't make sense for me to go walk through a building, inventory the doors, post the doors online, answer questions from people who don't know how to read a spreadsheet and figure out door sizes, or if there's a door available that does or doesn't have a window. Also, I can go get $40 from somebody to buy a door, but in the same sense, like it saves the door from going in the scrap and getting run over with the excavator. They were all solid oak doors from 1968, so like you can't get doors like that anymore. But in the same sense, it doesn't necessarily mean they have a lot of value. Yeah,
Is it a sledgehammer in, or?
Yeah, they were.
Tell me you got a nail gun, they'll shoot down.
Sean, yes, no, not that big.
4 inches.
Any other questions? All right, I got 2 more short things. What's that? Oh, yours? Well, yeah. Let me see if I got my email. Good question. Fucking AI companion, my god. Alright, hang on a second. On that one. Oops. Oh, no. You emailed me a Jesus. I'm gonna have no room now. Maybe. There's a network share, sir, or a thumb drive. Hang on. How big is this thing? We can. All right. Hang on. All right, this second, sharing the screen again. Yeah, we took some of them. Somebody else actually showed up to take some of them down as well. The south side was really sun scorched, and so the shingles were nowhere near as good a shape. The north side is way better. But if only. Also through this process, Don has learned about video editing. This has been a good, what's the name of the program you're using? All right, I got a very short one. When I was taking over the metal recycling or the electronics recycling over the city, I always bring a bin. So you bring a bin with your stuff in it, and then you pour the bin out. And then when you're on your way out, if you see anything you want, you throw it back in the bin, and then you just carry your empty bin back out, right? I mean, there's nothing in there. I just forgot to take a thing out. I just wanted to keep it. So anyway, somebody had tossed an Xbox, but they threw the Xbox away like in the box. And so it was literally in the box in the electronics recycling. So I saw this thing in the e-waste, and I was like, what are the odds? And I had about 3 seconds to decide, so I grabbed it. It was heavy, so I threw it in my bin and brought it here. And of course, once you turn it on, and it beeps but didn't turn on. So I looked on the internet, and the internet said that it might be this main power supply capacitor. And so I pulled the thing apart. It actually comes apart surprisingly easy. I got inside of this thing here, and the corner of this thing is what the next picture is, which is of the power supply capacitor, which made a lot of sense because as soon as it had a draw trying to turn on, it was dying. And so that's telling me that the power supply wasn't able to hang on enough juice to get the thing to boot up. So this thing is glued in place. I have to like taking it out. So I just clipped the old capacitor leads up high, left the little leads behind, and then soldered the new capacitor to them. So I didn't have to actually desolder anything from the board. And then, so you can kind of see this has just got the leads flexed over and soldered together, which is not a normal official process, but it works fine. And it booted right up. So saved an Xbox One X that I don't necessarily need, but you know, I don't know. I looked them up. They're worth like $150, $200. Interesting security perspective. If you have a random Xbox, which I didn't think, they're not locked. Oh, Jesus. Of course you do. I need a controller. You got a controller? We'll talk a deal.
Yeah, I get a controller for like every kind of unit just to test it.
Yeah, exactly.
I should try to.
So anyway, there's no like it just you can unlock it and you can just wipe the thing, which I did not expect at all that to be the case. So it ended up being you could just boot the thing up and then go over to reset console and it just resets and wipes the whole thing. So anyway, sorry dude who used to own the Xbox, but I saved it from the trash for you. Oh, how much it cost?
Yeah.
Oh, it's terrible. It's like $3. I only buy 5 of them for $10 though. So now I'm good for the next 9 Xboxes. So Aaron, you better bring them in
I
quick.
just wanted 2 Xbox One. Yeah,
My other random electronics repair task is these things are they look like ear protection and they are ear protection, but they have Bluetooth speakers built into them. So pretty sweet. So while you're cutting apart churches, you can listen to I don't know godless death metal music or something. Good stuff. So the annoyance was I had this set and I had this thing for years, and this cord has this really bad flexure spot. So you can see this metal bar hits the cord that comes out. So it flexes it super tight. So of course it breaks the cord right at where the joint is. And so what ends up happening is right here, this flexure point cracks, it shorts out the wires, and then the thing stops working. It's a 6-wire cable going across. I tried ordering cable on the internet. I should have grabbed those. I ordered some really nice silicone cable on the internet, smallest conductor size I could get. It showed up and it's like as big as my pinky finger. It's this giant cable. Like, yeah, it's not gonna work. So while we were doing scrap night, I saw this is RJ11. It's a old school Ethernet 6-pin networking cable back before they had 8-pin networking cable and it was flat ribbon cable or flat cable. And it flexes decent. It's stranded copper wire, and I think it'll work good. But what I ended up doing then is soldering in replacement wire end to end, and yeah, back to alive. But yeah, this is the problem: is these things flexured too much. The interesting part though is while I was waiting for to figure out these things and fix them, while I was waiting for my wire to show up from overseas. Somebody posted one in Wisconsin on eBay for like $35 for a new set. They said that their wife bought them a set, and then they already had bought a set, and they didn't want to tell their partner that they've already bought a set. So they posted on eBay because they wanted them gone. And so, long story short, I bought them for $42 and I get sold for it. But if you look here, this left set and the middle set's the old version. The left set is the new design. What they changed is where this thing came across and hit this metal bar, they made it take a tight left turn, which then turns this entire length of the cable. So now rather than flexing over the cross section of the cable, it's flexing over the twist axis of the cable. So this left one is never going to fail on the wire because they fixed it. The stupid part is I tried to reach out to 3M to see if they'd sell me the wire set, but they don't sell parts. They only sell, if it's under warranty, they'll replace it. Otherwise, they won't do anything for you. So they have indeed figured out that this is a huge problem and they fixed it, but they totally did not want to help you fix anything else otherwise. So yeah. Oh my God, sir! This one, this is when you're old and you're worried that you're gonna forget which wire goes where. You cut the wire up and you leave enough behind so that you can still see what the hell color it is to go to the other side. Because I had to figure out which, and they're labeled on one side of the board. The other side of the board has no labels at all. And they're in a different order. They actually flipped them from one side to the other. So the left side board is like well labeled, clear. The colors are all in order. The right side board, there's 3 wires on one edge and 3 wires on the other edge. And they actually mirror. So one side comes in straight and then it flips opposite to go to the other 3. Just because that's the way it laid out. But yes, consequently, I lopped the wires off and left them long. Any random questions? Brian, I'm sandbagging for you. It's coming soon. Yep. I would never take anything out of the municipal recycling, but people just bring gifts and donations all the time. So, yeah, no, if you go to the municipal recycling, bring a bin. And when you dump your things you don't want, you can put things that you want in your bin and then carry your bin back out to your car. if you're fast and you don't make it obvious. Otherwise, the workers there get grumpy.
And you go there as often as Chris does.
It's for no reason. They just, and it's
just
funny.
keep wandering around like guys.
Long time ago, I was there when it was out at the old site, and they had a huge TV, like gigantic. It's actually one of the TV that's over there. It's a huge ass TV. And there's no way I was gonna like and bring this thing and throw it in the truck quiet. Like, there's no way how it's gonna happen. So I looked to the worker guy and I'm like, can you do something somewhere else for a minute? And the guy's like, oh yeah, no problem. Hey, if it doesn't work, keep the sticker on it, because then you can bring it back. You won't have to pay anything. Like, I mean, you're fine. You're like, so it super depends on who's there. The city isn't supposed to, for stupid reasons, let you take things. It doesn't make any sense. Legally, from like a data perspective, you know, for data protection. But like, I'm sorry, who the hell is the city auditing the next electronics waste place that it consolidates up to? All this stuff just gets passed around. What ends up happening is whoever is taking it, the asset management company, they would take out this stuff. They put it on eBay. I've actually found their eBay store. They have an eBay store. They sell untested electronics. And then it gets bulk up to somebody else who then scraps the computers and shreds them. And then eventually it ends up in another country where it just sits, and then it sits in mountains. That's what happens to e-waste. Even if you properly dispose of it, there's been a ton of people who put trackers and all sorts of stuff in this, and it just goes into mountains in Africa or India or China. So it's not a good thing, no matter who you give it to. Same thing for like the shoe collection. It's all just goes to the pile in another country. Other fun electronics things, now that we're talking the terrible realities of things, or it ends up in Mark's yard. Mark's got space. So we've got a dumb thing. This thing, you've probably seen one of these things on YouTube. It is a fiber laser welder or a cleaner. It does this. Come on, there we go. So you got one video that works. About half of that is the air noise, and the other half of that is the laser eating and destroying things noise. So it's a handheld 1500 watt death ray. What's that? Yeah, take your tattoos off. Take your arm with it. Interestingly, the wavelength of this laser is reactive with metals, but not paper or wood or plastic or human tissue. It's actually the same wavelength that is used for tattoo removal, but a very different kind of machine. This is not the right pulse intensity. So I was testing it. We got it yesterday. I ordered it this time in the meeting, you know. Came on a boat from China about a month and a half ago. So the stuff that I'm passing around has all been cleaned. Like, this thing's been half cleaned, and those are not laser welds; those are regular welds. This was taking paint off on the bottom of the big black heavy pipe, and this was playing around with stainless steel, or actually plain steel. There's a few different operating modes. You can set the thing up to clean things. You can set the thing up to cut things. You can set the thing up to clean things differently. You can also set the thing up to weld things. So it'll feed in filler metal into what you're welding. Interesting that they provide us with a pair of laser safety glasses, which are woefully insufficient for protecting you from the brightness of this thing. They are technically killing this OD8 plus is what's attenuating this 1064 nanometer light source. And I'm sure it's technically protective, but it's very bright. And so I had asked the company if they could send us a welding helmet style thing. So this thing is a laser safety shield. So it's an auto darkening welding helmet, like the auto darkening LCD assembly. And then it's got a face visor around it. And this makes it so that you can adjust the brightness that you're seeing. So it's attenuating the laser frequency, but it's attenuating the brightness. And this makes it a lot more comfortable to look at. And then
just close your eyes.
Oh yeah, you just close your eyes. You use your feelings. So reach your hands out and feel around for it.
How we doing over there?
Oh, it would go good on old Airstreams. Yeah, you want to take some paint off an Airstream? We're gonna need a 40 amp outlet though, 240. So you have to work on that, Mark. Oh God. Uh, the burning paint definitely still smells like burning paint, even though you're burning paint. So the laser allows you to adjust some different things. You can adjust the frequency at which it's rastering back and forth. The second thing down is the width that it's rastering. So it's kind of like drawing a line, and then you can adjust how wide the line is. The power, it's a 1500 watt laser. I was using it at like 150 watts, 200 watts. It won't turn on at anything less than 100 watts. So it wants to be using itself, not trying to idle. But if you're not cutting things, you really don't need the peak power. And then your duty cycle, it can vary the pulse width. So I was just playing with this. The metal, it can be adjusted and played with in terms of the parameters that you're using. And then the frequency is the square wave that it's putting on, so it's kind of pulsing the laser on and off. So all these things affect what it's doing, whether it's cleaning or welding, and they're adjustable. So for the benefit of the internet people, this is on the right side clean, and the left side is raw from just random MIG welding. So these things can be used for cleaning surfaces. You can set it up in different ways to clean narrower sections, or also to run it as a cutter. The challenge is we kind of need a different table configuration for cutting, because it wants to cut through the thing you're cutting and also cut like things 12 inches away. So it's got some reach on the focal plane, which in this case is bad. Somebody's going to ask, how much does it cost? So this was $4,600 for the unit, another $780 for shipping, and then like $250 for the consumables. Part of this too is that if you don't argue on the price, but you ask for extra stuff, they'll often throw in extra stuff as a a gift to help you out, like the welding helmet and things. So there's different strategies when you're trying to broker things on the internet. The fun thing then is I had to wire the money over to the manufacturer. And so when you go to the bank and you say, hey, I want to wire $5,600 to a company, even though we're a company, they're a company, the bank like, all right, you got to come into the office. We're gonna talk about this. What's the company's name? What's their address? How did you meet this person? What are you paying for? Have you talked to them on the phone? Interestingly, I'm pretty sure having talked to them on the phone would be worse, because I said, no, I haven't talked to anybody on the phone. Because what they're trying to do, the bank is trying to make sure you're not getting scammed. Because the bank's expectation is, oh, some angry manager called you from your overseas broker or your overseas arm of your company and is letting you know that their boss wants you to wire money to their vendor so that you can pay the bill from whatever, because they're having trouble with their wire system that day, or whatever the latest scam is. So long story short, the bank has questions about what the hell you're doing and why you're sending somebody money. Once you release a wire transfer, it's pretty hard to claw back. And by pretty hard, I mean really hard. So once that money goes out, it's gone. In this case, your payment terms is 100% payment. On some very large transactions, they'll take like 50% down. But then when it ships, when they deliver it to the shipper, you got to pay them. So you can't like pull back or escrow money, unless again you set up something more sophisticated. So yeah, that is laser importing 101. Anybody got any questions? And then I'm done. What's up?
So what's like a maintenance? Is it something that's serviceable by you guys, basically?
Yeah, this is effective. So the question is, what's the maintenance look like? And effectively, this is a standard laser fiber laser supply. The head then is a 4-in-1 head sold by another company, and then the rest of the machine is a chiller. So there's not really much to it. Functionally speaking, that's different from what we already know. So this thing here is a packaged 1500 watt laser supply. The thing on the right is kind of a torn apart welding or chiller, just like our other laser has. And then up on the top here is some electronics and some controls that are controlling that welding system, which the welding system I didn't show because I didn't have time today to set it up. But the welder feeds wire in, and then it feeds the laser power from the top. And my principal interest is in using this to weld, because you can weld a lot of things and you can drive a lot of energy into something without touching anything adjacent to it. So you can weld, in welding there's a thing called a heat affected zone. The heat affected zone is where things break and crack, and also provides a lot of distortion, thermal distortion. This is kind of keyholing, so it's making a pocket, channeling this laser energy in, and then pushing filler into it, and the filler is pushing you along. And in short, it ends up making very little heat input and very clean welds. Also interestingly, you can use this machine to pre-clean where you're going to weld. So you can use this to knock off the contaminants and burn off oil and anything else that's on the surface, and then weld over top of that. And then when you're done welding, you can clean it again. So there's some interesting ways of getting good welds on things that are otherwise hard to weld. One in particular thing we have to do is eventually we're going to build a deck out here. That's what all the steel is sitting out here for. And to build that deck is using the big I-beams that are out in front. Those I-beams are all covered in rust. So we're going to try to use this to clean all that stuff because it's way faster than sitting with an angle grinder. It's way quieter as well. It's creating a lot less debris to be able to just run this over the surface and clean it off. So it's got some appeal to us to be able to do that. Any other questions?
It doesn't make like a smell, or as far as like getting rid of like rust. You're basically like frying rust.
Yeah, rust is just getting burned off. And yeah, I mean, it's you're cooking rust, but it's not where you're really normally smelling is you're smelling the abrasive and the grinding wheel, the fiberglass the grinding wheel's made of grinding down. So this doesn't have any of that. You can still smell the paint that you're vaporizing, but you're not smelling like you're not eating the fiberglass that's making the core of that grinding wheel and the abrasive. So it's got some benefit to it. Yeah, at the moment I have one welding helmet and we're going to end up interlocking this thing to the welding shop door. So you can't, if you open the door, it shuts the supply off. One funny thing that Scott sent me earlier, very appropriate. Probably going to get taken down if I let the audio run. So, but this was the old Warner Brothers building disintegrators. Very good overlap for us with the ray gun. Yeah, when I get the YouTube DMCA takedown, I think it was short enough. We're probably good, but who knows? All right, Brian, you probably want to share from your laptop.
Yep.
Matt, you asked earlier why there's so many wires. They put on the headphones. They put the battery on one side of the headphones, and the audio has to pass to the other side of the headphones. So 3 of those are battery power wires. Another is power to charge the battery, and then the other is the signal for the speaker coming from the other side. So that's why there's 6 wires, because they got a bunch of signals get passed back and forth. All right. Come on up, Mr. Brian.
Oh. Oh.
Need to go out of Zoom and come back in.
Oh, Jesus. All this time to prepare, sir. You're like an office worker now. You're supposed to be ready for this.
Need to allow Zoom admin rights to my machine, I guess. Whatever.
Should allow that laser cutter admin rights to your machine.
Cool. Name recorded. It's not. There we go. All right. I don't know what that is. Okay. So what I'm doing is ESP32. So if people aren't familiar, it's kind of a chip. Sorry, so there's like, in the world of DIY electronics, you kind of know of your Arduinos and then there are your Raspberry Pis, right? So your Arduinos are embedded systems that you program with C++. They're kind of headless, you can't do anything with them. Or like, you can do stuff with them, but it's just kind of self-contained within. Raspberry Pis, you can put an operating system on them, and boot up a OS and log in and do things. ESP32 is kind of somewhere in between, where it's like an Arduino, but they added on like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and things like that. So for my future projects, I guess, looking for something new, and I've been playing with this. So it's been around for a while. I don't know if you can see, if you're looking at my video here. Let's see if I can pin my video over.
Gotcha.
Got me? Doing the work.
It's spotlighted.
Would you like to unmute later? Oh, you got me? No. All right. So let's see. Yeah. Anyhow, so I got these two things here. You can't see them on the screen. They're up there. And this is like a very old one. You can kind of see it's kind of got a bunch of different little goober things on there. This one has like a big chip on here. So this one it's all on one module. So with these, they have the processor plus like everything else you need to make the processor work. So it's like oscillators, capacitors, things you don't know. So you can just kind of put this on there. It's got the antenna on there and it's ready to use. And what's kind of been nice about this, as I discovered it, is like the Arduino ecosystem seems to have done a good job of supporting it. When I was initially looking at sort of programming with this, the SDK was like, pull down some stuff from GitHub, open up Docker, compile some stuff, blah, 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 a lot of crap. But now it seems like they support a lot of things in the Arduino ecosystem. So just like you have in your boards here, where you have like the Arduino boards, there's Unos, Nanos, and things like that. They have a whole series of ESP32s. And this is kind of the joy and pain of working with this, is ESP32 likes to rev their hardware a lot. So for example, this old one that I have that's several years old, it doesn't have like onboard AES encryption, so it kind of makes it difficult to do networking stuff. For example, I cannot make this thing talk to my AWS IoT backend because it needs certificates and stuff. The new one works great, right? And like even when you look on this one, it says like ESP32 WROM-32E. Not long ago, it was 32D, 32C. They just keep on making difference. So, and there's even like, they sell these on Amazon. So there's like these little dev kits that are kind of similar, but again, different. So what's nice is, like I said, they got Wi-Fi stuff and they kind of do all the things out of the box that Arduino does, and you don't have to like relearn something. Like a lot of libraries just move over. So here's an example program that's kind of just a hello world that's just kind of the way it is before, right? So it's like you have the standard blink LEDs, you got your delays, but then you have like Wi-Fi type of stuff. So same thing. You got your examples. You can load up sort of all your things. One thing that's sort of a little bit different using the ESP32 than Arduino is you have to. We'll look into here. There's like a hookup guide. There's like these drivers here. So in order for your USB to talk to the chip, there is a like USB to chip converter that you have to install on your machine. So it's kind of one catch. And depending on what model board you have, sometimes it's this CH340, and then there's another one I forget. So that's just kind of another thing you got to get to sort of make this work. So here is just sort of like the same type of program like I said I had before. So once you get it going, you can kind of connect it to the port. I already have this set up. And you select your board type, and like I said, there's a gajillion different types of boards. And you can just sort of write your code, and you can compile it. It takes a little bit longer than Arduino code. There's more libraries and stuff. But what you can do is, once it's going and you kind of upload, you can kind of see it uploading here. Once it compiles, it'll go through the process of just uploading the hex file. And so there we go, compiled. All right, upload a bunch of stuff. And there's buttons on the board here. So you can see I put this thing on the sector Wi-Fi. So let me hit the reset button. All right, there we go. So connected to Wi-Fi, and there we go. That's the MAC address of this little goober thing on here. So, like I said, you can sort of take that as your base and do other things like this thing. So here's an example of, I took that base and I added a couple stuff. One is there's this SparkFun BME 280. So I just take the same libraries that are already been made for the Arduino, pull these in, and do the same type of thing. In this case, this program not only talks to this BME 280 to do, humidity, temperature, pressure. I also have it talk to, I put stuff on an AWS endpoint. So like I said, I needed like a bunch of certificates. So I can take this and, I'll also talk about, does low power mode, which is pretty nice. So you can have it do stuff. So we'll hit the upload here. And what'll happen is once this program starts, here's sort of my AWS endpoint. So the program, once it loads, it will go through, it'll turn on the I2C to talk to the board. Low power stuff I'll talk about later. Again, tech to the Wi-Fi. And then also somewhere in here, I have like connect to AWS. Here's where it was. Oh, there it is. Connect to AWS. It's in one of these secrets. Not, it's down here. I'm not going there. That's where I put it. If you can memorize, if I didn't show you both all 2 or 3 certificates, this is the CA certificate. It's not the private and the other certificate.
Scott and I got a date later today to fill up Brian's AWS credits.
Okay. Well, I'll just disable the certificate then. So let me hit the reset button here. All right, so here we go. So you can see it's connected to the Wi-Fi, and then it's connecting to AWS IoT. You can see it's reading the humidity, the pressure, and the altitude and the temperature. And if I go take a look here, here is that telemetry. So you can see I have this on this topic, ESP32 / that's the MAC address. So if I go back to my environment, is this guy. So it's like D4, blah, 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 9570. That's, whoops. There we go, that guy. I have another device at home. I have 2 devices. I've done this more than once. So there's another device at home that's talking. So if I hit the reset button again, there we go. So it's gonna connect, and what you should see here is, there we go. So it just came in now. So this is that piece of telemetry. So that's kind of my new thing that I'm going off of. Like I said, one other thing this also has is like low power modes. So you can put things to sleep. So they sort of transferred over these whatever special functions that they made, and you can do stuff and actually put it in a low power mode, and it does a pretty good job. It kind of goes down to like 1 or 2 milliamps or something. It's very, very low. It's very, very low. So the idea is you can make this battery powered and try to make a soil probe that sits in your backyard that communicates to your computer, your home Wi-Fi. And then when it rains, you realize you didn't make a good enough box, and then you destroy a couple of these things. And that can be your life as well. Yeah. Any questions?
Is that your, like, are you trying to make a garden probe or what are you?
Yeah, so I had a garden probe. I also have like a porch that gets very hot because a lot of sun comes in and sort of plant stuff in. So that's what this other device is. So what happens is I take this telemetry, put it into store it somewhere in AWS to grab it. So yes, so the goal is more sensors. The next thing is to, like I said, there's you can get these modules on a chip. So make a custom board basically. So the next step maybe be like drive a motor or something type of thing, and maybe a relay or something to have it.
Turn on or off.
Yeah, right. So try to make a something, because what's sort of nice about this board, and if you have like Fusion 360, you can sort of take these files. SparkFun has like all the Eagle files. You can load these up into Fusion. They have all the schematics, so you can just like cut out crap you don't want, put in things you do want. As long as you can find it in this supplier in China, and then upload that to them, give them $150, and a week back get 5 bullets.
So have you played with the battery? Like how long like sticks in the garden?
Yeah. So right. So with this type of device, and since you're doing Wi-Fi is kind of a chatty protocol. So what happens is it takes a lot, like the sensor just like milliseconds. With the Wi-Fi, like comes alive, has to do some handshaking to get to the Wi-Fi, and then has to do some more handshaking to like talk to the internet through the Wi-Fi, and then it shuts itself down. So I have not had a device last long enough that I've kind of got it dialed in. I'm trying to use these. Oh, what is it? A 16800 battery? What is it? The one's
18650.
18. There we go. Yeah, so this thing runs at like 3.3 volt or 3.3 to 2. What does it say? Does it say the features on here? Yeah, 2.3 to 3.6. So these you can get like almost 1 milliamp, 1 amp hour on some of these things. Like this is like a half amp hour. Yeah, like here's like 990 milliamp hours. That's almost 1. So that's kind of my target power. I don't know if that's a good idea to use this because this is more for turning on lights and driving power out to a thing. With this low energy, electronics, it may be a dumb idea. I don't.
Big risk like burning.
Well, no, it's just the battery discharge profile may not work well when it's at the below a certain voltage to re-engage the electronics on it. It's just a different power. So like a lot of people use like lithium ion type stuff for this because it's different power curve.
The irony is the 18650s have a lot of their power dense cells, and they're not energy dense cells. So they have a lot of ability to discharge really high rates, like the power tools or bait.
Right.
They're not very good at very small, long duration draws.
That's a better way to say it.
So the funny bit is the self-discharge rate of an 18650 might be higher than the draws. So the battery itself will just lose charge to the plates quicker than these drawing charge because this draw is so small. Versus there's other types of cells that have better plate isolation and will last a very long time energy wise. But if you try to draw 5 amps out of those, they absolutely. So there's energy dense cells and then power dense. I do a lot of this stuff.
So this is like one I got. That's just like it's got this like charger. You put this. Yeah, it's a little bit in between. It's like less milliamp. I don't know.
Those are all fake.
It's a fake. It's a
The 18650s are 100%.
right. Yeah, I mean, yeah, exactly. You're right. It's not the same as this, but it's like
You're not getting the time.
no. Yeah, well, I mean, it even said right.
I'm looking at my 4,000 amp hour or 4,000 milliamp hour walking tool battery that's this big.
Right.
That's kind of that one cell.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I mean, it even says right there, it's 2,600
Yeah.
milliamps. So but again, this is like a lithium ion. Well, so it's
So in theory, that battery is going to last for 1,000.
yeah. So
Right. Rest.
correct. Correct.
And that's just simpler, maybe that is a cloud service.
Right. So there's a whole mechanism of you have these devices, you have these things. AWS does a good job of sort of making security certificates. So you have to put in certificates that talk to the front end, and it's just the professional way to do it, I guess. I mean, you could easily just say, I just want to go to talk to everything. Like I know Chris had like those environmental sensors that in the back. Like I don't know what those use. Those might just be well, but does it have certificates on it?
Oh, it's more on their own website. Yeah.
Okay. Right. So this is like a secure tunnel that, and if I find weird things in here, I'm going to say, okay, well, let me just go deactivate this thing and revoke it.
So this chart is also from Brian's yard. So this is from your.
Oh yeah.
But right, it's just something like a.
Right. So this is
AWS would be comparatively cheap for something like this. It's generally
Right.
by usage. Just usage is like borderline 0. But if you messed up and like dumped a whole bunch of stuff, like oops, I just emailed you a giant video kind of thing, you could charge like a reasonable price. Not any specific examples, but hypothetically speaking.
right. So this is where I'm at with stuff. Right. It's like 8 cents a day. Right. This is like a URL domain name thing. That's a fuck.
And just to be clear, as long as you don't mess up. But like theoretically, we could go use Brian's certificate to the account, and we could throw a ass load of data in his AWS instance, and we could get him like a $2 bill.
Yeah,
Really
it's
hammer them in.
yeah.
But you can set warnings, you can set thresholds, you can
Right.
cut it off. There's all sorts of.
And this is just doing this mostly for sacrifice of it's more secure than just letting this dump the data.
It's my job. It's what I do now. Right. It's like when you do stuff in Zion, are you is it gunslinging time? Are you just amateur hour? Are you like, nope, this is the right way to do it?
Nobody's gonna die.
right. So yes. So yeah.
So on the reason that we Arduino Studio.
Yep. The Arduino IDE. Yep.
Yeah. Are you did you work with like general purpose networking interfaces, or was there like basically a library?
Yeah. So there was already a library in here, right? So there's this Wi-Fi library in here. So like there's here we go, like Wi-Fi, right? So they have these like Wi-Fi clients and things like that. Same thing with the AWS. So with the AWS, there's a somewhere in here is a MQT client. Maybe not that one. Yeah, like there's just like MQT clients that are already in there that I use, and it's just a matter of when you initialize. Yeah, you gotta like set. So here's the Wi-Fi client, and there's the MQTT client. So here I set the certs for the Wi-Fi client. And then once I have that going, I can then use the MQTT client, which talks to my particular endpoint, and then I can send a message up to the broker. And there's even like something like JSON, yeah, Arduino JSON. So it'll take an object, JSONify it, and then put that onto the top. So that's why when you're looking at this, you see all this brackety. It's the S3 bucket. Yeah, and here's the other thing. It goes into an S3 bucket. So
So you got a couple of different like libraries working together.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. So if we were to add them up, there's I don't have a sleep. Oh, there we go. Got a sleep library. That's my own sleep library. This just is a thing that has special files. Oh, yeah. Arduino JSON. So that's the other thing too, is like there's a bunch of libraries in here that are just like, so if you want to do like MQTT.
Yeah, if you haven't played with Arduino lately, Arduino's library sorting stuff has gotten a lot better than it used to.
Yeah.
It used to be really a lot smarter.
Yeah.
That said, though, if you wait like 6 Arduino revisions and then try to use any of your stuff that use libraries, it's all screwed. That's the only downside.
Yeah, I'm constantly like opening up as like your libraries are out of date. Do you want to update them? No, sometimes. So right, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
Like the great things.
So yeah.
Brian, I mean, this particular example show that I was impressed. Is it really anything but Arduino? I mean, what this?
Yeah, so the ESP32 is a different chip architecture altogether. So,
Totally different.
but so the thing is, everything that's embedded really uses C or C++. So whatever the Arduino people, when they standardize their programming language, they say, okay, we've now take this chipset and we'll make it look all the same, and it should still.
I guess I was going to like you described it as like a hybrid. You know, but what's really
So like the Raspberry Pi has like connectivity. So this also has like Bluetooth on it as well. This one has like an SD card slot. So like you can actually put memory on this. I've seen libraries where it's like it's a web server client. So you could like you could say, okay, I want to go to the Mac, like once you connect to this in the Wi-Fi, and you could say, if I know there's something on port 880, I go to a web browser and it could have a web server on this and then serve up things. So yeah, so it's can do almost like normal networking computer stuff.
The biggest difference is the Arduino, anything networking is an add-on for Arduino.
Yeah.
This is built with Wi-Fi at the center.
Yeah.
So like this was intended to be, and Arduino is like intended to be offline, standalone, and not touch the internet. So trying to make the Arduino touch the internet is a pain in the ass. Trying to use anything networked on this is like it's fully connected. Right. It also does low power way better. It does things like better. Right?
And there is this functionality called Wi-Fi mesh that I want to play with. So
you can have dump your first garden bed and then
right. Because the idea is if I make 10 of these things, I just say, okay, put yourself on the mesh and just talk amongst each other.
Through what?
Through like the Wi-Fi protocol.
Any other questions? Well, TJ's got a final presentation, I think.
I'll keep it short. How long before ChatGPT throws us off?
I would say TJ can tell you all about making all this programming stuff work with ChatGPT. So
That was the presentation I did.
TJ, you just want to join the Zoom and share on there.
Oh, okay.
It's much easier than door.
Okay. Here.
The link's in your email.
My what mail?
The link to the Zoom. Yeah, exactly.
I'm just
Might be me too.
sorry. All right. Running the Zoom. I don't need to join the computer audio.
Yeah, just mute yourself right away.
All right. Hello, everybody. This is a very last minute thing that I decided to talk about, so I apologize that it's going to probably be a little bit haphazard, but I've talked about on the Slack and the email list about doing a class. I still plan to do that. I've just been completely slammed and have not had a minute to actually even like send out an email about it. Is that makes sense? So one of the other things that I've done, I've already done one like test with oh my gosh, Jim. And I've thought about asking other people to potentially help me with figuring out a good format for how to make that, how to actually do the class. So here, let's just get specific. Has anybody tried to use ChatGPT? I'm going to try and just do a quick presentation of talking to ChatGPT, what that looks like. Just explore it for like 5 minutes or however long you choose. Yes, Scott.
Oh, yeah, I use it all the
You use
time,
it?
yeah.
So has anybody used it and had it not give you a satisfactory answer, or been confused about what it did, or had it not work the way that you'd like? Picture it. And if so, are there any specific questions that we could use as a like a test here to see how it works?
So I was experimenting with scraping data, visual information, specifically activity building plans, and that's give me the link is actually all. So
Oh, fantastic.
A list of all of them, so everything.
Oh, yeah.
I ran it 10 times and it couldn't, I knew how many there were, but maybe 3 and it got them.
You can't even get it to count the number of the characters.
Right. Yeah, that's interesting. I was very
So
much-
let's explore that as well. So we've got a business, we've got a floor plan, we have the complete failure to be able to do something as simple as like counting the number of words in sentences, in a sentence, or the number of characters in the word. Anything else? Anybody, anything somebody's tried to do? Ideas for prompts that, yeah, no?
The one that came up with conversation today, one of the limited AI trying to sell it. Kids we said AI is really good at giving you an answer on each side of the target.
Yeah.
But very difficult in showing passion there. But and one of the major what it is like that's the equivalent to. So I'd like to see you get us to have ChatGPT respond in such a way that students block the
I couldn't get it to start to solve it.
Yeah, I posted on my blog, I posted a picture of a building, a half constructed building that said, hey, ChatGPT, finish this building. Yeah, that's a fantastic observation, and you're absolutely right about it sort of presenting both sides, because it is without a doubt the most intellectually honest interlocutor that I've ever communicated with. Where even if it thinks you're wrong, it always starts out by explaining to you what it understood you to have just said, and then it says, however, and then goes on to explain why. But even there, it tends to be fairly diplomatic, and it just will sort of always present both sides. It tends to, it doesn't, you're absolutely right, it doesn't have that like human intuition of a human would obviously like focus on this or look at something a particular way, and it tends to just sort of look at both things, but each are equally likely. Like, for example, it is absolutely atrocious at this little game called Connections. I don't know if anybody has played it. It's on your Times website. It's a little square of 60 words, and you have to find 4 sets of 4 words. And so you can, if you just give it all 16 words and say, can you find a connection? The answer is yes. It can literally find a connection between any of the 4 words. You can pick out 4 words that have nothing to do with each other, and it will connect them. And you can pick 4 that obviously connect in a really like intuitive way that human beings just makes perfect sense, and it will go off on some tangent of like, well, lexiconographically, they work like this, or like, I don't know. They are. It is. You're absolutely right, and that is one of the issues. Okay, so we've got it being really bad at math. We've got the floor plan idea. Any other like questions or like? All right. So let's start with the sort of overall concept of talking to it, because that's probably the biggest thing that I've seen, at least in talking to people about how they use it, which is it's framed as being this unimaginably intelligent, sort of smart thing. That's a really, really, it's an ineffective way to. Instead, what you want to think about it as is that you are the master and it is an unpaid intern. Really fast. It has access to huge amounts of like booking. It can like do stuff for you. But you don't want to ask it for like aspirational goals for the humans. Exactly what you were talking about. It will fail for one thing, at least at this point, because it is not yet good at holding lots of things in its head. You have to hold lots of things in your head all at once to reach what we think of as like intuitive, obvious solution. There's just a bunch of things we take for granted. You can't. They're all like equally possible, depending on what angle you're trying to comment. So, thinking of it as an unpaid intern, it does not know what you know, and you have to tell it what you know, and it usually won't get it right. And then you have to tell it how to make that better. You have to basically work with it like you would an unpaid intern. We expect you here. Build me a OCR software that can do this, or feed in a PNG and give you back its answer. It's not its going. You have to sort of guide it and tell it what you want, but it can help you do that. So I will just say categorically that I just turn this, yeah. Zoom. There. Screen. Okay. There we see. Okay. So let's take something like the very, very difficult problem that I can guarantee we are not going to solve in the next 5 minutes, but maybe we can kind of look for a path that leads us towards solving it probably better than would have happened if we just gave it a picture. So I'm going to assume we have like, was it a CAD program or was it like literally a PNG? Inside would have just been an image. It would have just been like a.
But I found the whole thing in that.
Was it English or pictures?
Oh, it was just like a little imagine a blueprint.
Okay.
And so I had information words on the side, but most.
Yep. Were the values that you wanted to calculate, like the outside walls, would those have been in the words or would it have been in the pictures? Pictures. Right. You want it to give you words, but the pictures are inside the PDF.
Yeah.
Okay. So I will stop right here, actually, even having not typed anything, because just that is something that it probably could have helped you to figure out. Like, I have this PDF. What do you need from me? And it might ask you questions. Again, if you just upload it and ask it a question, it is almost certainly with like nearly 100% certainty going to fit. But so let's start. I'm going to say I have a PDF with a building plan in it. I need to be able to calculate things like the outside edge. So I'm just going to leave it at that. Let's see what it does. I am using ChatGPT 4, which costs $20 a month. The difference between 4 and 3.5, in my experience, is sort of like a high schooler versus a college professor.
So I thought, well, because 3.5 can't.
Yeah, exactly. There are a whole bunch of features that make it nice, but for me, the main reason I pay for it is that when I ask it a question and it gives me the answer, the odds of that being not wrong are dramatically, just like dramatic. So what did it say? PDF readers.
Use your software.
Convert PDF to CAD software. Okay, so this is a perfect example where the question that I tried to get it to like do for me was way too broad. So let's see if we can get specific. That's the first thing, narrowing in the whole project and focusing on like, can we write something that will extract the pictures from a PDF? And now the fact that it was a PDF becomes not important, and we just have a list of pictures. And now we can say, I have a picture of a floor plan, a PNG, let's say. How would I interpret it? So let's assume we skip to that step, because it would almost certainly be able to write Python code that could extract images from the PDF. And so let's say if I extracted floor plan PNGs from the PDF, what would be 5 great ways to turn them into machine readable details, either CAD or something. Yeah, what we want. So I'm being fairly specific about the specific question I'm asking it, but I'm also leaving a lot of the specific edges out. I didn't even probably really need to say with Python, because if it was writing code, it will almost certainly always use Python by default, want to use Python. Asking it to list a specific number of suggestions, that's one of the ways that I've found that's best for getting the best use out of it, which is that I have it help me to think outside the box. So if I'm thinking of something and I can think of 3 things, I can say list 20, and it'll list 20. And maybe the first 3 are the ones that I was thinking of, but necessarily the 4th will have to be something else, and it can just go on and on and on. So
Just throw out windows, see there it is.
image processing and edge detection, contour detection, feature extract. So this is something else it'll do when the answer gets long, is it will just fill in like placeholder templates for what you're trying to do. But the other thing that this gives us is a starting point for like, which path do we feel most comfortable with? And then we take the next step with it. And at each step, it's like we can say, well, that sounds promising. Go spend tomorrow and research that, and then come back and tell me, except it'll come back and tell you like 10 seconds later, and then you can continue down that path. But that's, again, the main thing that, so this has been a great example, thank you, of sort of the misinterpretation of what it is or isn't good at, or what it sort of does really well, is trying to have it do too much all at once, and just at every layer, it like potentially deviates off and just doesn't give you what you want. The one other thing, I didn't actually do it here, but that is just a like ABC kind of suggestion I will throw out for anybody talking to AI, is it has a certain window of like words that it can keep track of. And when the words fall outside that window, it just starts getting worse. They're making it better. The window's getting bigger. It's able to like not totally lose it, but it still loses it. It still loses it. So this window slides, and as you're talking to it, the important bits of information, potentially like the first question you ask, this question, eventually sort of falls out of the window. And so there's a few things you can do to help mitigate this. One is, if you ask it a question and it gives you the wrong answer, rather than correcting it and then continuing, or this wrong answer is like part of the question, if you go back to that first prompt and edit it and correct it right up front, like, I don't mean this, please answer this way. And then you just avoid that whole like block of incorrect information, and then you just have your prompt and its answer, and that like set, you want to kind of iterate on that till that's perfect, and then continue on with the next piece of the puzzle, so that you're not just sort of meandering, because it'll just meander with you. Once it loses that initial thread, then it's like unguided. It doesn't really know what you're doing. It just has like, well, it seems like you guys are talking about buildings. Did you know that buildings come in different shapes and sizes? What the fuck are you talking about? So, yeah. So,
Is there a way to do this?
So EJ wants to do a class on how to use this, which actually, ironically, Sean, you'd be very good.
I've been watching Slack.
yeah, no, I know. And I've been like, every week, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna send out a Slack message saying next Thursday. And then
I have a feeling you could yearly post your class and then ask people to use LLMs all day to come and pair program with somebody who's not familiar with them. Because I have the sense that this room is divided in half of like people who are very good at this, and people who are not good at this. And that would almost be a functional model for you of not trying to you be the sole teacher, but instead to be the one who's just the spark that's bringing people together.
I will open up just as a thing. If I'm ever here and anybody here is here, you're welcome to just come over and be like, hey, can you sit down for half an hour? And I'm happy to just like talk to you one-on-one.
He only charges $10 a minute.
I don't charge anything.
Just approach coffee, because he scares easily when he's in the mode.
Don't come from the back. You gotta come from the front.
It is true. I scare really easily. So that's that. The class, I'm really aiming at people who haven't used it, heard about it, who have tried it maybe, and it hasn't been like, it hasn't gone the way that they want, or like they haven't known what they use it for, why they want to use it, sort of that initial gap. I think I've said this before, AI is definitely a double-edged sword, and to the extent that it doesn't annihilate us all at some point, us knowing what it is and being familiar with it, and like knowing what it is and what it isn't, both now and then also as it changes, I think is important. And the number of people who like don't even know it exists is higher than it should be. And even those that know it exists, the number of people who have never like actually talked to it and be like, hey, did you hear that aliens landed? And there's one coffee shop down the street, and you're like, yeah.
That was cool, okay? We all went through it, okay?
So yeah, I want to bridge that first gap of like, let's go down and get some coffee. That's it. I'm not advocating for it. I find it very effective as a tool. I think that like a calculator, it's just keep getting better. But I'm not like.
Yeah, 'cause I mean, that's where I honestly, but I was able to just credit ChatGPT. I was able to get it to give me something, but and I was just told it, I didn't need it to do this. If I could get it to put your foot, then I could say, hey, give me X per linear foot, whatever.
Yeah, so that just as a like follow-up to this, that jump from like just any problem that's like actually a hard kind of unsolved problem, it's also going to struggle with. But the moment you get in it, like if you have a CAD program, this would have been an entirely because almost certainly it would be able to find a library, read that CAD program, it would be able to actually find the walls, look at the actual units of measurement, and write up 3.5 would just like try and calculate it. You're like, well, it looks like there's a 10 here and a 20, so that's 50. I'm like, okay, sort of. GPT4, by contrast, is sort of advanced enough. It will understand the problem well enough to actually know I'm not going to be able to do this because I'm not. And instead, I'm going to write a Python program to do that. And it is going to use a library to open up the CAD program, figure out the answer, and then return it to you. So that's the main new thing with 4 that 3.5 couldn't do, which is to use Python to solve problems. Isn't the case.
Yeah, no, that's it.
Doesn't always work. Sometimes it like uses some library that's meant to just open it up and run some code and gets an error, so it can use it and try to figure it out. And then you eventually either succeed or not.
But I think just to put your library on like that idea of walking down a path of consistency. Because I've definitely, you feel like you are leading into this like squirrel.
Yeah.
But like another example I was playing with is working on a marketing piece where I gave it an image of like, hey, look at this example of this diagram. And it had all of these like arrows and like number 1 was it had one sentence explaining number 1. So like this whole thing, right? Yep. And I said, can you give me that image and give my own words to each one of those plots? And it said, no, I can't do that. I'm not smart enough or whatever. And then I was like, well, what if I told you just can you recognize the numbers on that drawing? And I said, oh yeah, I can do that. Oh yeah, that's a great idea. Like, and it's like, so now replace those words on that drawing and just add number. Why the hell did I?
Two. I'll keep it short, but there's 2 quick answers. One, again, with both recognizing and the creating, if you can figure out how to do code, it can totally. But on the reading side, it is again an OCR problem. It has to be able to look at the page and not just find the text, but actually read the text. So that's a multi-step process typically, where first it locates the text, and then it does an image recognition on that, reads text, and it's a whole thing. Which again, when it just looks at an image, if it says the bear or something, it'll be like, I see the word the bear. The moment it's like a diagram with more than like 2 or 3 arrows, to Chris's point about counting, it'll be like, it looks like it's a diagram about building plans. And like, it will know that like it mentions the foundation and the roof, but like all the specific, you couldn't ask it any specific details about that because it's so much more fuzzy. Similarly, just to answer the question on the other side, Dolly, which is the thing that draws the pictures, the way that actually works, if you don't know, is it starts with literally like TV static kind of input, and then it mutates random pixels and creates 2 images, and then it looks at them. It's like, which one of these looks more like a bear riding? And then it picks that. And does it again. And it repeats that until you end up with a bear. But at no point is there like, oh, that looks like the word band. So it can be like, oh, that sort of looks like a B, and that sort of looks like, I don't see an E, but that's, and so you end up with bar, because at no point were the pixels E enough to be able to create the E. So they've gotten better, but this just explains why it sort of looks like it's hallucinating when it does this, the more specific you're trying to make the prompts or the classes what you're trying to get.
But that's like, that was the initial reaction, but the fact that it recognized numbers 2 and 3, then it can recognize, and then it literally put like a Latin or whatever in the because it said, oh, I can't translate, I can't make that jump between like, I gave it a list of text. I want you to put this sentence in number 1. So I thought I found that go around, and it actually said, oh, that's a great idea, let's try that. And then
It'll frequently be fully on board. Absolutely, you know what you thought.
So that's, I guess, what I was used to. Lighter you are, and the more food you are, the better it goes.
You got the more tips, man. You got to offer tips.
Well,
You say it's these
But
things.
is it true that?
Oh, 100%, but not for the reason you think probably. So an example is, if you ask it a question, it gives you an answer. Then you ask the question again, it gives you the same answer. Potentially, you just kind of go around. But if you yell at it, like you're not listening, and you say it again, that like gets it into a different part of its like training. And it's much more likely to now like apologize and sort of take a step back and reevaluate. It just, words come out different because you yell, not because it's offended or like, you know, it's drowning.
That was like the best hack of getting through the automated phone systems, is just to start swearing at it, cursing at it, and that gets you a live person faster than anything.
Yeah, exactly. That's the kind of thing that probably isn't widespread today, but almost certainly happens. And yeah, if you're talking to one of those things and you say, what the fuck? It probably will be like, hang on, I'll get you an agent. And that's
Yeah.
again, not because it's offended. In fact, it isn't. It's just a capacity of the company.
So by the logic though, is you're saying if you yell at it, it might not give you results for it versus saying.
No, it's more just that it will respond to your tone. So the way it answers, for example, if you're asking a kind of complex question and you really, really think through it, structure it really well, and you explain what you've already done in your own research, it is much more likely to give you a super helpful response. Again, if you're just like, I've been banging at this for 24 hours, why doesn't it work? Well, that's so your tone just influences how it, like what words come, because that's all it's doing. It's just like taking your prompt, at least ChatGPT, fix the next word, and then that's how those words flow. And so also the very first word influences the rest of the content. So if you ask it a question and it agrees, it'll be like, yes, go on and answer that question. And the first word it said was yes. Yes, certain. If it doesn't agree with you, it's much likely to be some other word. In terms of this, it sounds like this and this and this, however, and then actually go on. So the first word and then the second word all influence everything, not just its movement. That first word comes out, and that's all influenced by all of your prompt. So, thank you. That was a helpful starting point. And any other questions? ChatGPT Midwest. Oh no! So that
I know that's not gonna work.
I can just reference it. It's like a person. If I say 1, 2, 3 or 8, 6, 1, everyone in this room repeat those last 3 letters. But as soon as I get to like 6, or 8, or 10, or 12, no. Like if I listed 12 numbers right now and then said repeat them back, I know most people would struggle to do that. And it has very, very similar limitations. Again, when you think of it as being really smart, it's just sort of like a brain. And so just like us, it can keep track of 3, 5, 10. The newer ones can keep track of a little bit more, but once it's like 15 or 20 things, even just like the letters of the alphabet, it struggles to accept 26 things. Like it doesn't have arrays, it doesn't have that kind of structure. It's just thinking of the next word. So, yeah. I'm going to be around